Are we good? Okay, we're having technical difficulties, so if anybody wants to speak and be heard on Zoom, you need to use one of these these mics, okay? Great, okay. First thing on the agenda is public comment. It's limited to 15 minutes and no more than 3 minutes per speaker. Anybody want to speak, please come up to the table and be heard.
Yeah. This is available. No. It's on. The green light.
Is it?
Michael Williams, 1284 Sudbury Road.
Hi, Mike.
I imagine it might be unusual for a citizen to come to 2 consecutive meetings, primarily to say thank you. Today, I'd like to thank you, Madam Chair, for your powerful statement on our current naming conundrum. We appreciate the power of your statement. We'll take our further questions directly to the school committee, but I want to thank you. I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank our community. Up until the evening of the town meeting vote, it was not clear to me that
Michael, can you speak up a little? Thanks.
up until the evening of our town meeting vote on Article 22, it was not clear to me that our vote was going to prevail. It is difficult sometimes for our friends and neighbors in our community to stand up as is tradition and be counted amongst their peers, but our friends and neighbors were not counted in any way, shape, or form. And for that, I thank them. I owe them a debt of gratitude. So again, thank you to the committee. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Concord. I'll reserve time to come back at some point as necessary to thank you all again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Hi, I'm Craig Omeller of 27 Lang Street, and I really want to thank the chair for what I thought were her very, very wise comments that were given to the bridge, in the sense of dividing these two issues from the naming of the middle school, which understandably we all understand it's not up to you. But the issue of responding to the town's legislative body, that's of concern to us all. And so I left last meeting not despondent, but not sure what was going to happen. And I was just thrilled to read your comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Almeida. Any other comments?
I certainly second. I'm Tui Rogers,
Mr.
30
Rogers.
Elsinore Street. And I second what we've heard. Madam Chair, I know you were not speaking for the board, but I was also just so thankful and heartened by your words and the clarity of separating the issues. I think when you're in the middle of something, it's hard to sometimes step back and see the way the issues really are parsed. I also was reflective. I'm on the Concord 250 Permanent Memorial Subcommittee, and we have not one but 2 commissions to deal with what physical historical things we put in town. And I realized that when we have historical decisions like the one before us now about naming the middle school after, a person of color, our first opportunity to do that, especially in the year of the 250th, which is focused on bringing forward the voices of those who haven't been heard. We don't have a commissioner or somebody who can sort of say, well, this is a bad idea or a good idea in this time. And so it was with some trepidation I came to you in your last meeting to say, we're not being heard. We're not even being listened to. Where do we go? So thank you very much for your words. And thank you all for doing what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening. I'm Deborah Dorfman, 27 Lang Street, and I'm just here also to echo the sentiments of my friends here today and to thank the chair of the select board for her words and comments, understanding that they're your personal comments, and also just appreciating the select board for listening. This is, as we've all talked about, a really, really important issue. It's an important opportunity, and it is really crucial that Concord get this right, because the consequences will be most unfortunate if we don't get this right. So thank you again for all of your work on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Dorfman. Anyone else?
Joe Palumbo at Black Horse Place in Concord, and I wanted to just talk about two things. One, this is Asian American Pacific Islander Month, and last week on Thursday night there was a really good presentation at the forum presented by Colonel Love with the help of the Concord 250 and the DI Commission about Benjamin Ralph Keemlau. And thank you, Shannon, for sharing his picture. What's interesting about this picture is Benjamin Ralph Keemlau. We didn't have this picture until last Wednesday. Because of Colonel Love's work on this presentation, the folks down in New York City who know him, and he's honored down in New York City, some of his cousins, like a 90-year-old woman said, could we send you some pictures? And they've never been seen before. So they got put into this presentation. And why Benjamin Ralph Keemlau is so important to us, not only is he one of the most famous Chinese American heroes in the country, the first monument to an Asian American veteran was built in New York City in 1964 to him, but was born in Concord. And it was only recently a member of our Concord 250 committee, Ben Zhao, let us know that he was born at Emerson Hospital. And so he spent his first 14 years in the area. His mom was a chemist. His dad was an interpreter. The other way around, dad was a chemist, mom was an interpreter. So we're just beginning now with Concord 250 to start unpacking more of his story. This is, the presentation was recorded and it'll be on Minuteman Media. It's really fascinating to watch the research that Colonel Love did about this native Concordian. And we hope to find more ways to honor him in town. So if you haven't seen it, take a look at it. And then it's a one thing we're doing for Asian American Pacific Islander Month, because we know they have a long history in our nation and in our town. And then related to school naming, just we know that the DEI Commission did write a letter to the school committee, but we've not received any response. It's been 20 days since town meeting. We're hoping that we get some response at tomorrow night's school committee meeting. And if you haven't noticed, the Anti-Defamation League of New England, I wrote a letter to the school committee as well that I really asking them to step forward and do the right thing and make a wise decision tomorrow night and name the school for Ellen Garrison. I think I sent you late this afternoon that letter, so I hope you take a look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Palumbo. Any other public comment in the room? Anyone on Zoom? Right, okay, good. Moving right along, the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
Have you read the proclamation for Jerry Wedge?
I would be happy to do that. So the consent agenda tonight includes a proclamation honoring Jerry Wedge and his commitment to building a vibrant and inclusive community through the arts. Whereas Jerry Wedge has stewarded the transformation and expansion of the Umbrella Arts Center as a highly regarded cultural destination and center of excellence during his 12-year tenure as executive director. And whereas Jerry served 3 terms on the Concord Public School Committee and Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee, and whereas Jerry has contributed to fostering and strengthening arts and education in Concord through service to the Concord Center Cultural District Task Force, Concord 250 Arts, Literature and Music Committee, Economic Vitality and Tourism Community and Culture Advisory Task Group, among other town groups and committees. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Concord, on behalf of Concord's employees, committees, community partners, citizens, do hereby recognize Jerry Wedge for his service to the community over nearly 2 decades in Concord and for enriching the lives of our town through expanding access to the arts. Signed, the Concord Select Board, this 21st, 20th day of May. Thanks.
Also, before we accept the consent agenda, I would like to thank the Middlesex Savings Bank for the gifts to the fire department. So I have a second. I'm all in favor of accepting the consent agenda.
Aye.
Very good. Next on their agenda, town manager's report. You have something, Megan?
I do. Thank you.
Good.
Couple things to highlight this week. This is Public Works Appreciation Week. And we appreciate the work done by our colleagues in Public Works every day. They really touch just about everything in this community, from roads, water, parks, cemeteries, town buildings. We consult with them on public art installations. They not only improve the community, but they also play a key role in responding to emergencies. Like some recent work that I'd like to highlight is from Assistant Town Engineer Justin Richardson, who led a project on Baker Avenue where there was a compromised drainage system and a temporary repair had to be done very quickly. And under his leadership, they were able to stabilize and temporarily plate Baker Avenue towards the end of last week and are continuing to work on a more detailed assessment of needs. So we sincerely appreciate the work that our Public Works colleagues do this week and every week. Also in public safety, the fire department received 89 calls for service between May 11th and May 17th. And one of the calls for service included a confined space rescue at a home that was demolished. So we really appreciate everyone ended up okay after that rescue. And we appreciate the work of our fire team. In the police department, we had Inspector Holsinger, Officer Brady, and Officer Lorden assist with Bike to School Week for Willard School on May 8th. We had Inspector Palladino attend a Massachusetts Children's Alliance annual conference on May 8th. And officers assisted with the Middlesex School Alumni Weekend on May 11th. And finally, Lieutenant Landers attended a training on May 14th regarding CI technology software platform, which is designed to assist public safety agencies with maintaining their professional standards. And finally, I wanted to mention that last week I had the honor of going to the Council on Aging to be their celebrity chef. Yes. Last Thursday, it was the highlight of my month. It was so wonderful. I got to know a group of about 13 seniors, and we cooked together and had lunch together, and it was just a really great experience. So if you know anyone who might be interested in becoming a celebrity chef, you can send your nominations to Tina Close at the Council on Aging.
What did you cook? Yeah.
We baked pizza and we made salad, and we made our own salad dressing. So it was really great. It was a wonderful way to get to know some people in town. So I appreciate them including me. Full disclosure, they asked Carrie first, but she was out of town. So I was happy to pitch in. So that's it. That concludes my report. Thank you.
So all we need now to recognize the DPW was more money in their budget. Wouldn't that be good?
Mary, can I just ask a
Sure, go
procedural question?
go ahead.
I'm just looking at the agenda.
Yep.
It said select board appointments.
Yeah, I think
Oh, we
skipped
missed,
the
we
agenda.
skipped
I
that.
just
Thank
didn't know if
you.
it's part of the consent agenda, or if we need to.
No, thank you. We skipped it. You're right.
There are a
So
lot.
now we get to listen to Mark. Go ahead.
Step up to the microphone. That proclamation for Jerry was just the throat clearing. Okay. Select board appointments. Move to appoint Joe Palumbo of 90 Black Horse Place to the Concord 2025 Executive Committee for a term to expire December 31st, 2026. Move to appoint Pat Nelson of 52 Cottage Lane to the Planning Board for a term to expire May 31, 2029. Move to appoint Linda Escobedo of 1783 Wedgewood Common to the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire May 31, 2027. Move to appoint Mary Hartman to the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust as the Select Board member for a term to expire May 31, 2027. Move to appoint Terry Ackerman to the Concord 2025 Executive Committee as the select board member for a term to appoint to expire May 31st, 2025. Move to, yeah,
December.
December 31st. Thank you. Move to appoint Andrea Monserrata of 41 Commonwealth Avenue to the DEI Commission for a term to expire May 31, 2027. That's a reappointment. Move to reappoint Jimmy Two Feathers of 303 Commonwealth Avenue to the DEI Commission for a term to expire May 31, 2027. Move to reappoint Eric Macy of 1228 Lowell Road to the Trustees of Town Donations for a full term to expire May 31, 2027. Think that, did I get them all?
One more.
No, one more. 3 pages worth. Move to reappoint Rick Miller of 300 Main Street to the Trustees of Town Donation for a partial term to expire May 31st, 2026, shortened to continue staggered terms on the trustees and to be exempted from APP 10, Section 7, B1. Okay. Keith, go ahead. I think you're unmuted.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Keith Bergman, 56 White Avenue, Chair of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. Just
Keith?
a point. Can you hear me?
Just a minute. We seem to not be hearing you through the main speakers on the TV set, so we're going to just try that again. Is the volume up over there? Yeah, okay.
Well,
All right.
Try again.
Okay, we're going to try to hear you a different way. Okay. Whistle or something so we know you're out there.
Testing.
We should be hearing you.
Hello.
Oh, maybe check the audio settings and see what the output device is for speakers. Go ahead, Keith.
Keith Bergman, 56 White Avenue, Chair of the Concord
I
Municipal
could turn up
Affordable
my
Housing
speakers
Trust.
over here, but I'm afraid that's going to create. Yeah, they can.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's try this. Just mute us.
All set. Okay. Simple point. I just wanted to raise the appointments to the trust are 2-year terms, not 3-year. So they would expire in 2026 rather than 2027. Thanks.
That for both you and Linda, or?
No, Linda's not a select,
No, so
yes,
she could say 2026.
That's
but
right.
You would go 2025.
yes. And also Terry,
yeah, might as well be changed to May 31st, 2025.
Yours stays December, that's just how the term for the 2025.
Right, but
committee is.
I won't be on the select
Okay.
board after May.
Alright,
So
so keep it as 20.
May
31st, 2025.
Yeah,
yes,
we could reappoint somebody else.
yes.
So so right now your term expires then, and then we can fill it with another person.
Right.
A select board member,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Okay, and so we're changing Mary's to.
May 31st, 2025.
2025.
Yeah, both of them now are May 31st, 2025.
Okay, yours and Terry's,
Yes,
but we're leaving Linda at 2026.
yes.
Okay, All right.
Okay, we have a motion. Oh, we already, did
That was a motion. We needed a second.
Motion with those, a
With
second
those-
with those modifications.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Thank you. And did we have some? So we did. That was appointments. Did we have some nominations?
We already did the nominations. They were.
Nominations were part of
We're
the
part of
consent
the,
agenda.
okay, yeah, we have some other nominations later. Okay, great.
Okay, the next
So-
item, the next item on our agenda is the chair's report. I have something written because I want it to be clear.
Just in terms of the town manager's report, I just wanted to
Go ahead.
thank the Department of Public Works for doing the amazing job that they always do, running the drop-off swap-off this weekend. It was, as always, a sight to behold. Thank you.
Okay, chair's comments. Some of you read my comments in the online version of the Concord Bridge regarding the naming of the new middle school. The position of the select board remains unchanged. We recognize that the school committee has a legal authority to name the new middle school. Speaking as an individual, I am concerned about the unflattering publicity that Concord is receiving, but most importantly, I am concerned about the lack of trust in our town governance that some residents are expressing through letters and conversations. This lack of faith is directed across several boards and commissions, including the select board. In the next few weeks, the select board will be developing our goals. Goals are founded in principles. Going forward, I commit to honesty, listening to and responding to community input, ensuring all residents are heard and included in our decisions. If I stray from or neglect these principles, I ask my colleagues and the public to remind me, and I trust that you will. Thank you. Next is liaison assignments. Who wants to go first?
Okay, so I attended I attended the West Concord Advisory Committee, and they're starting a review of their charge, as all committees should. And they're looking at initiatives, and they're working on they're gonna have a joint meeting with the planning board this week. And I just wanted to comment that as they go through their charge, it's very dependent on the West Concord Master Plan, which is sort of from 2010, so it's kind of outdated. So there were some questions coming up about what will the MCI project do, given that document's outdated, but just a comment, there's just a recognition that it might need some work. I also attended the ZBA meeting. Many of you know that we have a 40B project. The Thoreau Residence was a 40B project. There's been, the applicant has issued an extension for the application until October 14th of 24, because there are two things that they want to work on. One is they're doing some more geological studies, but they're also trying to address the driveway access concern that was raised by many, by the ZBA and many citizens. So the next scheduled review for that project will be July 25th. So a little pause while there's more work going on. So that's good. The other item of interest is that the waiver for the Concord Public Schools for the canopy setback was approved. So that's also been done.
Good.
And then lastly, I just want to comment from our meeting last week, there were many citizen concerns around what the school committee is going to do around the vote and recognizing the town vote. So I did send an email to the chair of the Concord Public Schools asking them to publicly acknowledge the vote and indicate whether the school committee was going to uphold their former vote or reconsider the naming of the middle school. And as many of you know, there is an agenda item on for Concord Middle School. It's not clear it's about the renaming. It's unclear, but there is going to be a discussion this week, tomorrow. So my update.
Thank you, Wendy. You want to go next?
Sure.
Good.
Okay. So I, just an hour ago, I was at the PEG MMN meeting, and they announced that they've already had 3,000 views on YouTube of our town meeting. So very successful recording by the MMN group. I think there were 1,000 views the first night, 900 the second night, whatever. I don't remember all the details, but this is after the meeting. People are still watching it. 3,000 views. So that's pretty incredible.
I wonder what would explain that. Any theories? Do we want to theorize?
No comment.
Okay.
Uh,
Troublemaker.
Yeah. I attended the ribbon cutting, as did several of you, for the poetry phone booth. It was a nice event. And I also attended yesterday the volunteer appreciation luncheon for the 250th. And one of the things that was said was that we want to have a celebratory tone and a unified tone. We want to show off the best of Concord. So that kind of ties in with your excellent comments earlier, Mary, that we want to be, I don't remember exactly what your words were, but we want to be transparent and we want to be working with the citizens and unified. So on June 3rd, at our next meeting, the 250th is going to come in and they're going to give us a budget and about what their revenue is and what their expenses are. They've promised they're going to have it this time. And how the fiscal process is going to work between them and the 501c3. Because there's a certain amount of confusion. And I actually found out from Anthony, our finance director, that people can donate to the 501c3 or they can donate directly to the town for the 250th under MGL Chapter 53A.5. And if the select board so chooses, we can create a 250th celebration gift account. So my proposal is that we see what happens on June 3rd. And if everything is flowing well and it's organized, great. If we still have a lot of confusion, we may want to establish that gift account. So I'll just hold on to it and we'll see how it goes on June 3rd. That's the end of my report.
Very good. Thank you. Mark?
Let's steal this mic. Couple of things since the last meeting last week, the town meeting study committee had its first meeting. We're going to hear more about that in a few minutes related to the special election. But there's an opportunity besides the question, revisiting the questions that we had at town meeting through the special election ballot. There's also an opportunity, I think, for the town meeting study committee to weigh in on town meeting procedures right away. And I know that the chair there is considering whether or not they might start looking at the calendar specifically for town meeting 2025 and offer us some suggestions when we're engaging with that, because as we all know, there's some extra considerations around scheduling exactly when town meeting would be. So that seems to be a good place to start. It's a great group and I'm expecting that they're going to be off and running very well. They did elect Eric Moore to be the chairperson of the town meeting study committee. On the MCI advisory committee, we're going to be making a modification to their charge in a few minutes. And we're working on scheduling their first meeting when we get those appointments done, which we anticipate would be completed by June 3rd so that they can meet in shortly thereafter. The Warner's Pond Task Force is meeting again tomorrow night. This meeting, I believe, is scheduled for Harvey Wheeler. I know it's 5 o'clock, so double check me on the location if you want to attend. But that will be engaging in a deep dive on the 2023 alternative analysis report. So this group has been working its way through each of the sort of important studies that's been done regarding Warner's Pond up until now. And so this will be the next in that series as we begin to also look at how what criteria we might be using for recommendations on that. So that's this week and select board. Sure.
Is the Warner's Pond, is the Warner's Pond group considering do nothing as one of the options?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's come up a couple of times in our discussions is to trying to establish a criteria for evaluating what will occur if nothing happens, and then using that same criteria to say if there's an intervention of one kind or another considered for the pond, what would be the likely results of those interventions against the criteria that we have for, for value as open space, recreation, water quality, those kinds of things. So that rubric is being developed as one of the action items on this. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so first week of getting to know some of the committees, I was able to sit down and spend time with Alan Cathcart in Public Works. And was also able to sit with Emily Smith and get a wonderful tour of the library and just the amazing sort of expansion that's gone on there. So I don't really have anything detailed to report about those, but just great to be out there and talking to the right people. I've been in touch with the Historic District and the Historic Commission, so getting onto the introductions there maybe tomorrow, but we'll see. Trying to get it scheduled. So really that's it. And then, haven't gotten to the other committees yet, but so no big news to report, but just getting out and about and meeting and greeting everybody and understanding some of their top priorities, some of the critical issues, and importantly, how we could help them as a select board and how we want to best work together.
Great. Good start. Thank you. I've got two things to talk about. One is I went to the CPC meeting. They're doing two things. One is closing out some old projects. So CPC allocates money. It's people spend against it, and then they've got leftover money that just kind of sits there. So they're working actively to look at how to close that out and move those funds back so we can use them someplace else. The other thing that CPC is talking about is having a better communication with the Finance Committee going forward so that we don't end up with amendments at the 11th hour at town meeting. The other committee I went to was the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, and they voted me the vice chair when I wasn't listening. But the other things they're working on is updating the housing production plan. We know that the MCI, the state agencies, the MCI agencies will be looking at our housing production plan as an important source of information, and some things need to be updated, specifically bringing in the 2020 census data and other things. So we're looking at making some quick factual updates or data-driven updates to the housing production plan. As Wendy mentioned earlier, the Novo has gotten its comprehensive permit, and that brings the affordable housing inventory up to 12.8%. So we're comfortably over the 10%. And then finally, the Governor's Affordable Housing Act is making its way through the House Ways and Means Committee. That's the act that will enact a real estate transfer tax, which will fund our Affordable Housing Trust, which would be good news for us because we wouldn't have to continue to fund it out of free cash. We will have a predictable, reliable way to fund our Affordable Housing Trust, which would be a great way for us to plan. And those are the two committees that I went to.
Mary, I have a question.
Yeah.
The housing production plan.
Yeah.
When we first adopted it, several groups had to vote to approve it, including select board. Do we have to approve
Yes.
these changes? Okay.
Yes, we do. Good,
Okay.
Good. Yep. Good
Great.
question. Great. Okay. Go ahead.
So I neglected to mention that the middle school building committee met again, and Wendy did mention that that was the morning of the ZBA meeting, so we didn't know that that variance was going to be there, but they're making good progress on the integration, I would call it, of the solar project with the middle school building project. So that seems to be closer to on track than it was. There had been a tour, which I was not able to attend, of the site, but those members that did attend were very impressed with the progress of that project as it continues to come along. And also, I think I need to double check this, but the chair's breakfast did occur last week. And that is now back on Zoom and recorded, which I happen to think is one great way for citizens to stay up, because that's in 1 hour a tour of the activities and status of virtually every committee in town. So having that recorded again, so that those status updates are available to people, I think is a thing worth noting.
Let me just add to that. The Finance Committee in their packet of information has a list of, a very succinct list of all of the committees that were here at the Chair's Breakfast. I have to thank Carlin Reed and Eric Dahlberg for that. So if you want to just read a 2-page summary of what the different chairs were reporting, it's the FinCom meeting packet. So we don't have to watch the whole video, even though it is the the video is available. It's a hybrid meeting now so that people can participate even remotely, which I think is a good step in the right direction. Okay, any other last minute liaison things that we want to say? Great. Okay. Okay, moving on. Discuss the language of the ballot and vote to set the date. Kari, I think it's time for you to come up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Kari Maitari, Town Clerk, and this evening I have 2 requests for you. One is to propose the date of Tuesday, June 25th for the special town election to approve the adoption of a permanent senior means tested property tax exemption in the town of Concord by including the ballot question and summary provided to you in the memo that is contained in your packet. Excuse me. As the memo indicates, this vote needs to happen in the first quarter of the FY 2025 tax cycle. Further, the effective date of the special act, if approved at the polls, is 30 days after an affirmative vote at the polls. So that is the first request.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said the first quarter of the tax cycle.
Yes,
What are the dates of the first quarter?
I think it's between July and September.
Right. So you're saying the election is going to be June 25th?
Right. So that's within the first quarter.
Well, wait a minute. The first quarter, you said, is from July 1st through September, right?
Yes.
I think Anthony.
Yes,
So it's happening in June, so it can take effect.
correct.
Okay,
Right.
Yes, sorry,
Good.
sorry.
thank you.
You're right. Go ahead.
Monday writing.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then the second request is to ask that for this election only, the polling location for precincts 4 and 5 be moved from the Hunt Recreation Center to the Armory located at 91 Everett Street. The reason for that is summer camp programming happening at the Hunt Recreation Center. According to Mass General Laws 5424, notice of polling location change must be mailed to each residence of one or more registered voters within or at least 20 days before the election. So we're well within that timeline. And for that request, I'd like to thank Colonel Love, who's the Director of Historical Services for the Mass National Guard and curator of the Massachusetts National Guard Museum, for so generously offering us this space.
Okay, so the schedule that you have in front of us here, Kari, says that if we vote for the June 25th election, moving backwards, we have to decide tonight, if I have this correct, we have to
Yes.
decide tonight what the ballot questions would be.
Yes,
And the wording of that, or just?
the wording of that, yes. The 35 days, which is tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
is the deadline for the town clerk's office to receive exactly the language that will be printed on the ballot.
So it's tomorrow for the wording.
Yes,
Great. Okay.
So just reading from the packet. The wording that we're talking about is that shall the town of Concord accept the provisions of chapter 193 of the Acts of 2022 and an act establishing a permanent senior means tested property tax exemption in the town of Concord, which act was accepted at the 2024 annual town meeting, fair and concise summary, which applies below. And there's several paragraphs of more there, but.
Right.
It's on page 33 of the packet.
And town council provided that summary as required by law.
So at this point, we need two motions. One is to approve the date of the election, and one is to approve the wording of that specific motion.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so are you ready for that? Okay, move to set the date of the special town election for June 25, 2024, for the purpose of approving the adoption of a senior means tested property tax exemption in the town of Concord by including the language on the ballot as included in the select board's meeting packet.
Second.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
And the second motion is move that the polling place for precincts 4 and 5 be changed to the National Guard Armory located at 91 Everett Street for this election only.
Second.
Okay, and I would note that the normal polling place for precincts 4 and 5 is the Hunt Gym.
Yes.
So if you are listening and you vote at the Hunt Gym, expect that you'll go to the Armory this time.
Good thing it's not far away.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
you can't miss by much.
right. Same parking.
Okay, very good.
We
Did
didn't
you-
vote that way.
Do we have, yeah, go ahead. You do.
Second.
And it was second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. So at this is where we want to transition to the town meeting study.
We do. We realized, or some people,
Do the advisory question?
that's what we're talking about now.
Oh, when you
Okay.
said-
So for those in the public, because we're having a special election, this opened up the possibility to have non-binding referendum questions put on the ballot as well. So now we're going to turn our conversation to potential non-binding referendum questions that we would put on the ballot. So who's going to do this, you or
So,
Eric?
let's let Eric introduce it. So Eric, we're going to try and hear you. If you can unmute and say something, we'll see whether we have the sound working today.
Sure,
Just
thank
maybe
you.
Introduce what the town meeting study task force is thinking about and asking us to do these questions.
Great, thank you. My name's Eric Moore at 45
Okay.
Francis Street. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? I'm at 45 Francis Street. This is Eric Moore. Cool, thank you. Speaking, I'm the chair of the Town Meeting Study Committee, and I'm speaking on behalf of the committee. So we would like to basically put three questions forward in this special election as advisory questions to better understand the preferences of voters, these voters in this election, participating in this election, to better understand their preferences around three articles that came up during the previous town meeting and were deferred for consideration, really, and study for the Town Meeting Study Committee. So we simply see an opportunity to get more information from the voters in this setting. Our sense is that they're non-binding questions. The proposed questions are in the packet. If you want, I can read them. I think there's one, with some discussion today, there's one clause that we would strike from the third question, but I can get into that if you want.
Maybe I'll just do that. Yeah. Go. Eric, would you go through one question at a time?
Sure. To the first question, and the intention here, the committee's judgment or the committee's vote was to use it to follow the language of the original motions as closely as we could, which is why they sound the way they sound. The first question is, would you be in favor of authorizing the select board to petition the general court for special legislation to authorize remote participation at annual town meetings and special town meetings in the town of Concord? Thank you, Shannon. The second question there, shall I read it, or are we okay to follow it? The second question, are you in favor of utilizing electronic voting devices, clickers, as the primary method to tabulate and record votes at Concord special and annual town meetings? And then the third question, and you can see the modification there, the struck out in red, is would you be in favor of authorizing the select board to petition for special legislation to allow all town meeting warrant articles to be presented to registered voters in a special town election following town meeting, with the results of the special election to be binding on the town, notwithstanding any contrary town meeting vote? As part of so these questions have gone through legal review, and I think we've also learned that as being presented as part of the ballot, on the ballot, they would also need pro and con discussion. I think it's 150 words for pro and 150 words max for con. And my understanding is that council would both initiate the submission of pro and con material, and we've identified who that would likely be, but really it's council's decision. And then there's a timeline for basically receiving things back, and then for getting the material out on sort of a sample ballot. Mark, I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, but
Yes, thank you, Eric. So, the timeline so according to Mass General Laws, chapter number 53, section 18B, there is a process for soliciting, opinions. The day after we decide the ballot questions, we are supposed to notify town council and the town clerk of that in writing. Within 7 days of that same vote, town council is supposed to seek arguments from the quote, principal proponents and opponents of the question. We can provide input, as Eric mentioned, to those who those people may be, but if there are official pro and con groups on a question, we're supposed to reach out to those first. The pro and con authors get at least 7 days to get back to town council and the clerk's office with a statement of not more than 150 words. And then town council has to put all that together and with a summary that they draft and have it to the town clerk at least 20 days before the election. And for those of you who are following along in the packet, if you look at the memo that was provided for the previous topic on page 33 and 34, the timeline for these actions is listed in a proposed June 2025 special election timeline, which allows for the notification of both the polling place change, which we just voted for, as well as the materials around questions that are on the ballot to be mailed out in time. And I just might add that the idea that this town meeting study task force had was this was a way of gauging interest in those things that we had immediately referred to them as part of our town meeting actions this year. And so they were taking advantage of the opportunity that we needed to have an election anyway to source that opinion.
Okay, go ahead. I have one comment and one question. So I just want to comment for.
I'll mute.
Okay, I have a comment and a question. So for the people watching at home, it's a little confusing, but I just want to point out that these three questions basically follow in your warrant from town meeting, articles 27, 28, and 29. So these are not new questions out of the air. We've already seen them in the warrant. And my question is to staff, who is going to reach out to town council and these pro and con groups? Is it Shannon and Andrea or the town clerk's office, or do we have a process for this? Or Megan, do you know?
I think it'd be Shannon.
Okay,
She's
just checking. I just wanted to check because I know-
Working closely with the town clerk.
Right,
Yeah.
because we're going through transition and what Mark just said was some of these deadlines are really tight. So something was tomorrow, something was 7 days. So you guys are on it, no problem.
I have a question about, question 3. Do I need this? I don't even
Yeah,
know
you
what
do.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
So they can hear you at home.
Got it. Thank you. I have a question about question 3. I know we're striking out the to be held within 3 weeks, right? But what I heard on the floor of town meeting is that this particular article was not legal. So I'm wondering, are we asking the voters to have an opinion on something that is either technically or is it even legal? I mean, is it
Well,
And the same question.
well, Mary, it says to petition for special legislation.
but
That would, then they would decide if it's legal or not. Because sometimes we've done that and the Attorney General decides it's not legal and they don't let us. So if we petition for special legislation and then the state takes a look and they decide.
Yep.
Okay, so that's all this article is saying. Is the town even in favor of going through that process of petitioning for special legislation? Does
I-
that make sense?
Yeah,
it does, but I thought there were more objections to this than just the fact that there isn't existing legislation.
well, there are a number of reasons why somebody might be for or against these questions.
Right.
And, one of them has to do with the awkwardness of having a ballot that tries to,
Yep.
decide what town meeting has decided. So
But
the town meeting study task force's idea here was that they could look, obtain the opinions of the citizens as to whether they have an interest in even pursuing this idea. It's also important to understand that this is far from the only input that study committee is going to be seeking, and it is really just an idea to get a sense of how this particular mechanism might work for gauging.
I just want to clarify to answer your question.
Mhm.
The Article 27, if you look at that.
Yep.
It doesn't say anything about special legislation. See? Right. It just says, beginning in 2025, we shall blah, 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 blah.
Very good.
So now question 3 is, do we even want to,
They're recognized.
okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So the other things look good to me. I just, for clarity for the people who are, sorry, for clarity for the folks, just, should we say the Concord Select Board to petition the Massachusetts General Court? Is it Massachusetts General Court? Is that right?
Yeah.
We're petitioning, just, I mean, again, we all know it because we read it all the time, but
Yeah.
it's just,
Mhm. Yeah.
Concord Select Board, Massachusetts General Court, where we could say that, I think just helps.
Right. Okay. Good.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, so move to include the advisory questions on the ballot from the town meeting study committee on the ballot for the special town election to be held June 25, 2024, following the procedures outlined in Mass General Laws 53, sections 18A.
With the inclusion of
As
petition the
amended.
Mass General Court and to strike to be held within 3 weeks. Good. Right? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
So can I just make one quick comment? And this is more for the citizens. There's going to be confusion about this, and I hope, and I don't think it's just the town clerk's job to get the message out, but I trust the study committee would probably put something in the bridge that explains why we're doing this now, and because I think it would be helpful.
excellent point, I agree. Eric, are you prepared to do some publicity on this?
Yes, thank you, I am.
Wonderful.
Good.
Ready?
Yeah, I have something further on this. Kari? Kari? So on a daily basis, we continue to receive many thoughtful letters regarding the naming of the middle school building. These letters contain a range of points of view, and many express concerns about the process as well as the outcome. Most request that the select board take action to help resolve this question. As we previously stated, we do not have a direct role in actually naming the building. That rests with the school committee. However, it has occurred to me that we could place a question on the special election ballot requesting an advisory opinion from all town voters on the naming question. Following the Mass General Law 53 procedure we just discussed, pro and con statements would be prepared and mailed to registered voters along with other ballot materials as outlined by the law. Absentee, in-person, and early voting options would all be available and enable broad participation. As with all elections, privacy of the vote is maintained. I think we should consider this action if we, as the select board, feel that it would contribute constructively to resolving the school building naming commission. I'm aware that there is some action contemplated on this subject at tomorrow's school committee meeting. Of course, we don't know what that action may be, nor do we know the outcome of the results of an election question would be. If we act today, the school committee could consider this as part of their deliberations on next steps. The timeline, as we mentioned from the town clerk, requires that we decide a question to be placed on the ballot today, and it's dictated by the schedule for the senior means tax exemption being in place. Should we decide to go ahead, I would propose that we use similar language for the question as in Article 22 at town meeting. Something like, would you be in favor of asking the school committee to name the publicly financed and owned property currently being built at 923 Old Marlborough Road in Concord, Mass. As Ellen Garrison Middle School? So I submit that for discussion.
Go ahead, Mary.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I wish someone from the school committee was here. So we'd have an is there somebody on? I can't see. the screen.
Let's talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah,
This is a select board decision.
This is.
right. No, I know. I just, we just don't know what the agenda is tomorrow. I'm just concerned. So I think it's a good idea. It would broaden the input from all Concord citizens. So I'm not opposed to it from that perspective at all. But
When Mark and I talked about this over the weekend, and we're the only people who talked about it. And my knee-jerk reaction to this was, what good will this do? And then as I thought about it, I thought that if we can, I think this might be our best opportunity to put this behind us in a way that people feel that they were all heard. So if the school committee and the DEI commission agree to abide by the results of this particular referendum, I think that if it passes, the school committee would in fact name the new middle school the Ellen Garrison. If it fails, the DEI commission would accept that and move on. And I'm concerned that this could go on for a long time within our community and be a divisive thing for a long time, months. And for me, this is our best opportunity, or it's one of our opportunities to be heard in a ballot, which has the advantages that Mark already pointed out, which would be secret ballot so that people would be able to vote their conscience, more people would be able to participate, and we would get another definitive feel for how the community feels about this. So that's my thinking, but I'm open to what other people think.
I agree. I think this is a really creative idea and it gives the select board something that we can do. We don't have the authority to name the school, but we can make sure the maximum number of people are heard on the issue by putting this ballot question forward. I do have some questions. So Mary, you just said that, well, I agree with you that we're all concerned this could go on and on and on and be divisive for a long time. And none of us wants that. But suppose the school committee and or the DEI do not agree to abide by it, then are you still in favor? We have to decide tonight. So, you know,
Have to, right?
yeah, they don't, yeah, they don't
No.
understand that part of what you said, Mary.
You're right. We're under the gun tonight that we've got to decide if we want to put this ballot. So the work that we would need to do is we would need to reach out to the school committee and the DEI commission and ask them to cooperate.
Right, we can ask them, but they may or may not agree.
Well,
Right.
that's always true, but
Okay,
let's
okay.
assume that we're going to work in good, let's assume that this will work if people work in good faith. And
Okay. Okay, and my other question is maybe to Kari and also to the board. If we have to decide tonight, let's say we put this on as question number 4, for example. And then tomorrow night, suppose the school committee decides to rename the school Ellen Garrison School.
Or not.
or not,
Well,
I mean, they may decide, I mean, if they make a decision.
they might decide not to.
Right.
Go ahead, but
well,
let's
if
say-
they decide to rename it
let's
to the
say-
Ellen Garrison School,
Yep.
does the select board still want to put this question on? Or Kari, do we have the opportunity to take it off? Or, if that happens?
I believe you have the opportunity to take it off as
Okay.
long as the warrant hasn't been posted
Okay.
and ballots haven't been mailed.
All right, so we could do a contingent vote if you wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do that. I just want to know if it was an option.
What you're raising, Terry, did occur to me. And I also came out with the understanding at this stage of the game that this is something that could contribute to the school committee's process for deciding what they actually want to do.
Right.
Because they could, yeah, obviously, we don't know what they were going to discuss tomorrow. But what we do know is that if they know that there is an option for this to be asked to the general electorate and an election to be held about it at a date certain with all the opportunities for people to become informed and participate in that election, they could potentially decide that that represents valid input to their discussion and simply decide to wait for the results of the election.
Yeah.
Which is sort of this, and if we think that there's any possibility of that, then that's the reason to consider this idea right now. Cameron, it sounds like.
Well,
you-
I just, if they've, I mean, it's an unknown, right?
Right.
So the school committee is going to meet tomorrow.
Yeah.
We don't know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, okay, they might not decide,
Mhm.
but they might decide, as you suggested, Terry, what if they decide to name the school? What if they decide not to? Right? So it's a little bit difficult to say, well, let's create something where, we're sort of going before their meeting and then, okay, if they've made a decision, then you're gonna have a ballot question that
Mhm.
sort of is again, kind of either questioning their decision. I mean, how many times are,
Well, the reason for discussing the possibility of putting a ballot question on now is twofold. One is we don't, because of the dates that we talked about with the real issue, the real reason for having this special election at all, we didn't really have a choice about the dates. We heard about that last week. This is the day that we would need to decide. So there is that. The other thing is it represents a new and different way of approaching the question of how to decide. These are the taxpayers these are the voters who voted to support building the school. These are the people who are being asked to pay for this school. And so asking them the question of would they like to name the school that. I personally think that while we've been getting, as I said, a lot of thoughtful mail about this, and it hasn't been unanimous in one way or the other, that is a self-selected group, just like the 300 emails that the school committee received, just like the 1,100 people on the petition. All of these are groups of people that are self-selected. And so this is an opportunity with, better than a month's notice for everybody to know when this decision is going to be made, if that is the off-ramp that people want to take.
Yeah, no, for me, the issue is just doing it without, like, it's sort of the school committee's decision. It feels like sort of like, okay, we're doing something without involving the people who are the ones who are tasked with making the decision. So I mean, if they were here in the room saying, hey, I'm all for this, that sounds great, but it feels a little bit like we're circumventing the school committee. That to me is my concern. Is not so much the concept of like, hey, you know what, let's ask everybody and see what they think. It's just, it's hard to say like, okay, wait a second, are we circumventing, people that we're supposed to be working with? That's all.
Well, I was going to say the other advantage is that it's a broader input. I mean, there's a lot of criticism that the timeframe was quick and we didn't get enough input. This would be a much broader, it's a bigger opportunity to get everyone's voices heard, right? So it's much what you said already, Mark, but I think that's an important thing because it was one of the criticisms that the school committee did get, that there may not have been enough time.
I would just like to offer that I think the school committee does have the right to name the new middle school. They derive that right from the public. So the more input that they can get from the public, I would think that they would welcome that. Tracy. Okay. Tracy, you want to speak? Go ahead.
Hi, Tracy Morano, 39 Partridge Lane, a member of the Concord School Committee, speaking on behalf of myself. So our meeting is tomorrow night, and I think you've seen that on the agenda. And I guess I'm really surprised by this tonight. I didn't see it in your meeting packet. It wasn't in any of the questions. So I'm certain that I think Cynthia's on here too. So this comes as a total shock and surprise to me. And I guess, it is a ballot question. It's a non-binding ballot question that you're maybe suggesting. And I would ask you to also look at town council's legal opinion. But we have a meeting tomorrow night to discuss this, so it just seems a little bit premature tonight in this discussion, especially because I know the rest of the school committee is not aware of that. Thanks.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kari.
So your vote tonight, however, I will say, sets the wheels of the ballot information mailing in question, in process. And it does take time to print the ballots. So the language, and I don't know when you would be planning on having another meeting with a 48-hour deadline, we're already in a tight timeline to get ballots printed and get the information.
I think Mark's suggestion was that we would use the language that was in Article 22. So we have the language. So I don't think we've got to rewrite the language. So what other problem do you see?
I'm thinking if you were to change your mind about if you were to vote to add it and then vote to take it off, there are some timing issues.
No, that wouldn't work. Our next meeting is going to be June 3rd. So I was saying we could just vote it, or we could do a contingent vote tonight. The contingent vote would be something like,
I don't think that's possible. I think I'm hearing we've got to decide.
I don't know if you can do a contingent.
Yeah, I don't know what contingent vote means.
well, what I meant was we would vote to put it on the ballot unless the school committee votes tomorrow night XYZ, that kind of thing.
No, I think we're under a really tight deadline here.
Yeah.
I think we've got to decide
fine.
tonight and have the language. I heard you earlier say we have to have the language by tomorrow. Did I hear that
Or,
correctly?
yes, you'd have to have the language. I don't know whether you could have a contingent vote to either add or to
Okay.
then remove it.
All right.
We don't know if you could have a contingent vote or we just,
I think we don't know. Well, I think we can.
but we don't know.
We're not sure.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to be unambiguous about this in the sense that I think that what I'm asking us to do is consider whether or not we think the idea of having a townwide ballot to provide input to this discussion would address some of the concerns that have been raised in the correspondence that we have been receiving, again, on a daily basis, asking us to help with this thing. The fact that we're at the last day when that's possible is an accident of the calendar. It's also at least partially because it has been nearly 3 weeks since town meeting weighed in on this question, and there has been no movement in response to this.
Well,
the
there's
question
been
is-
one school committee meeting
Which,
and they're meeting again tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So just to lay out the facts so, I mean, there's been a lot of demands for somebody to respond to the question, which I think our school committee is having a meeting tomorrow night.
with all due respect, the school committee's packet is pretty opaque as to what the purpose or action that is
More opaque than
contemplated
bringing this
is.
up? Is it more opaque than bringing this up?
It-
Let me look at our agenda and see where this is on the agenda,
It,
with all due respect.
It's on the agenda, actually. It's not, in other words, we didn't write out, if you look at the agenda, we didn't write out the different referendum questions that were going to be.
Okay, so if this is more clear
Yep.
than the school committee's packet.
Ah.
That would be an interesting. Take a vote on that one.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
so we haven't made a motion.
So can I ask about the language?
Yes.
So just again, for clarity, right? The building has been named the Concord Middle School. So,
No.
yes,
When?
we have Tracy Morano on the line. We can ask her.
So well.
Yeah.
the language-
February 6th, they voted February 6th.
They voted to name it. Okay, okay.
So if we're gonna be clear with what we're asking, I think the language should say to change the name from the Concord Middle School.
Well, So
language for the
Does anyone have the
So-
article?
I have the Article 22 motion. The motion at town meeting was, Mr. Palumbo moves that the town ask the school committee to name the publicly financed and owned property currently being built at 923 Old Marlborough Road in Concord, Mass. As Ellen Garrison Middle School. I was one of those 3,000 views on YouTube, so I went and looked at exactly what was on the screen.
Okay, so I think that's
So-
the language we want, except we might change the word name to rename.
Well,
It's to
I mean,
rename
it's-
the Concord Middle School.
It's,
What's the,
it's,
Or reconsider the
So-
name, yeah.
what I was proposing was, because this has to be an advisory question, and we understand that it's advisory, as Ms. Morano mentioned, the proposed ballot language would be, would you be in favor of asking the school committee to name the publicly financed and owned property currently being built at 923 Old Marlborough Road in Concord, Mass. As Ellen Garrison Middle School? So that picks up on the structure that town council was already looking at for the town meeting study committee language, which is asking a voter, are they in favor of this or not?
Right.
And again, it's advisory,
but
the
what they
school
would be in
committee
favor
still
of
has,
is renaming the Concord Middle School to the Ellen Garrison,
well,
correct?
or name or rename is,
I think Wendy had a good compromise on that. What is it?
Reconsider, but I can't remember the full.
Reconsider the name, you said.
yeah. But if, yeah, okay.
Do we, Do we have any other comments?
We have some people.
We have a comment here.
Do we want to
Then we'll go to Tracy after we have a comment from the floor.
We appreciate your wisdom and whatever you decide. We've certainly, from my perspective, I can't speak for the DI commission, but I'm one of the co-chairs. So I'm speaking for myself. I think just be aware that there's a good chance that tomorrow night, the wisdom and leadership of the school committee, based on the overwhelming words they've heard of town and others, may just decide to name the school tomorrow night, Ellen Garrison Middle School. They may do that tomorrow night. We have high expectations that could happen. But I think I'm hearing you say if that happened, you'd have the ability to pull this vote.
No,
I'm
that's
not
not
sure.
clear to me.
So that's something you have to
It's not clear to me.
take into account. But we certainly, I can't speak for everyone, but that's just a consideration in our head. That's why it's difficult to understand. But appreciate that you're thinking this through and thinking of ways to hear more people. I do believe, from what little I understand, is the town did speak via its legislative body, the town meeting, but perhaps that's not enough for the school committee, and maybe they need to hear from more people. I don't know. Thank you.
In my opinion, this will only work, or this will only be helpful if the school committee and the DEI commission agree to abide by the results. So I think the voters would, me as a voter, I can just speak for myself as a voter. When I walk into the polling station, I would need to know that. I would need to know that there was a commitment to abide by this by both parties. So given that, I am willing to give the people of Concord another chance to come in and give us their opinion.
So, Tracy has had her hand.
Tracy, you want to say something else?
Yes, thank you. Just to be clear, we've had one meeting since town meeting, and due to open meeting law, we actually haven't had any discussions as a committee. So our second discussion will be tomorrow night. And as per every meeting that we have, we typically don't vote on anything the first time we discuss it. Our vote is the second time. So that would just be the first thing. And we have received a lot of feedback since town meeting, upwards of 65% of the feedback, just for everyone's information, is in favor of Concord Middle School. And then just for clarity purposes, the building is named the Concord Middle School presently. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have another comment here in the room? Go ahead.
Craig Allmiller, 27 Lang Street. I'm speaking just on my behalf, not as any representative with Friends of Ellen, although I have a lot of friends there. As a voter, I find this very strange. Very strange.
I'm
We-
laughing. We all do. Sorry.
Well, okay, I'll keep talking then, because the town, which we call the legislative body, it's been asked and answered. And if you do this, why not put, every vote is self-selecting. Why not have, should we do the budget over? I mean, on Monday, I voted for the budget against your recommendation, against the recommendation of the finance committee. And that vote apparently is worth listening to. But the second one on Tuesday night isn't. This doesn't feel like trust. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm new to Concord, as I think I mentioned last time I was here, and I'm really appreciate this body's efforts to try to address this very serious issue. I am very, very troubled by what I can see being a new person by the divisions within this town. And frankly, based on the comments of Ms. Morano, I'm concerned that I think we have our answer. I think we know exactly how the school district will, or the school committee will vote tomorrow. My guess, if I had to put money down, they're not going to change their mind about changing the school district, what they say is the Concord Middle School. I don't think they have any intention. That's just my opinion. But based on the comments, that's what seems to be reflected. And what's interesting about it is that I still don't understand at the town meeting when they said, well, we take public opinion into account, but other data, I don't know what other data there really is. And the vote has occurred, and it was overwhelming, as we all could see. There's a picture, and it was overwhelming support to change the name. And so I'm just kind of, anyways, I just had to comment at my just perplexedness of why the school district will not relent and follow what the people of the town of Concord want, the people who, to your point, Mr. Howell, are paying for this school and who came to town meeting and voted. So thank you for listening.
I don't see any further public comments, but when I had this idea, and it is my idea, that I genuinely do not know, because there are assertions on both sides of this issue that somehow, at least at the correspondence that I read, can be believed that they're representing the majority. And so that caused me to examine the question of whether or not there was a way to understand what the majority opinion is. And this question about ballot questions, which we first started to look at last week because of the opportunity of the special election that is required. And so I formulated this idea as a result of those learnings. And so when I consider this question, I really do want to remind you that I'm trying to understand whether it might be helpful at this stage of the process to ask the voters in general, because there are a lot of opinions, and I believe I've heard the statement, that elections matter, and they do. And so since we're going to have an election, and this is an active question, maybe it's time to just vote it and find out what the majority of the community really wants in this case. Because I think that those of us that are elected, we hear from a lot of people, but we certainly don't hear from everybody. And the process that we're talking about is a very prescriptive process. It is written in state law exactly how this has to be done, what information needs to make it to voters, and the methods and timing of the voting are such that it is about as fulsome a way of gathering opinion as we have available to us. And so if opinion matters, this might be a way to do that. So I'm going to.
And my concern is,
Yeah.
is a lot, and probably more than anything, just about sort of the process of, we haven't talked to the school committee about it. We haven't talked to the DEI commission about it. And so here we are kind of going in at a little bit at the 11th hour saying, hey, well, wait a second, we're going to just sort of spring this on people. To Mary's point, if the school committee and the DEI commission said, hey, we're all in, this is the best way to resolve this, who are we to stand in that way? Okay, great. But we don't know any of that. So it just makes me very uncomfortable.
This is the,
Sort of like,
okay.
hey, wait a second, all of a sudden it's like,
I know.
nowhere, this is a thing. Like,
I've thought this through a little bit, and we've unfortunately we've got this calendar. We need to have the the election on June 25th so that the people who get the senior means tested exemption can actually get it. So we're locked into this calendar. As Mark's idea to me, as I said at the very beginning, at first sounded like it wouldn't be helpful. And now I'm thinking this is an opportunity to at least put the marker on the ballot and then find out if we can convince and hopefully convince the school committee that getting more input, because it is an election, would be the right thing to do. And likewise for the DEI commission to understand that getting input from the community would be the right thing to do on this particular issue so that we can move on. I mean, we live by a calendar, and we have this deadline, which is tomorrow, to have this language. And I thought this was, you're right. We didn't speak to people before because we didn't really know we even had this opportunity, but now we do have an opportunity to get more input. And I would expect that both groups would welcome more input. And so I honestly don't see the problem of taking an opportunity to get more input, because that's where we derive our authority. And it just so happens that we have this opportunity and the clock is ticking and we've got to decide tonight.
And Mary, just a point, there's a pro and a con
Yeah.
on all these questions too. So there's gonna be an opportunity. I'm sure the schools will probably weigh in on that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we ready for motion? Are we?
And well, sorry, but do we know, is there okay, so if we decide this, just
Yep.
so that we're clear,
Yep.
we vote on something. 24 hours later, people say, or 12 hours later, people say, oh, actually, no, I don't want to include it.
You mean us?
I'm asking,
We're the
is there a
deciders. Go
contingent?
ahead.
No, I know, we're the decider. I'm asking, is there a contingent?
No,
If
no,
there's,
this is.
okay, that's fine. If
I
everybody's
mean,
in
I
agreement.
have an
just-
opinion on your question. My opinion on your question is that I think that there's value in asking the voters and sort of resolving what the majority opinion is in the community, and then taking that as input to the decision process. And so
Mhm.
I would be, if we take the action that I'm proposing, which is that we place this question on the ballot, then it would be a fact going into the discussion that presumably the school committee is going to have tomorrow night, that there is going to be a ballot question that is going to happen on June 25th. And after June 25th, we will know what the majority of Concord's voters think about this issue. And then, they'll do their process, but if I were sitting in the school committee, I would then probably be inclined to say, let's wait and see what that outcome is and do what our constituents ask us to do. Again, nobody sitting here knows what that result might be.
Right.
I was just more clarifying if we're going to deciding something.
Yeah.
Yes or no.
We are.
We're not deciding something, because Terry had
Right,
also
I-
mentioned like, oh,
yeah.
if you.
So,
Can you
Yeah,
adjust?
I mean, I first heard Kari say that we could take it off if later. But I think, if it hadn't been printed yet.
Yeah.
But I think that would be complicated. Anyway, I'm willing to go with the majority on. I'm in favor of doing it, whether we do it with the contingent vote or not. And to answer your question, Cam, I guess there's always a way that we can call an emergency meeting or a 48-hour notice meeting if we had to. Like, I'll be out of town, but I could participate by Zoom and whatever. But, so it's possible, I guess, that if you wanted to have another meeting and that, if the chair wants to have another meeting, it is a possibility to do it if Kari hadn't taken it off the ballot. And I thought it might be simpler to do it as a contingent vote, but that seems to be too complicated. So,
I think it is. I
okay.
think we need to decide tonight whether we're going to ask the voters of the town of Concord their opinion on this. And hopefully during the next few weeks, we will get commitments from the interested parties, and voters will go into the ballot knowing the results of their vote.
The schedule that's published in the packet tonight does call for ballot coding and printing to happen tomorrow.
So we need,
So, and the notice to town council and the town clerk to start the process of getting those pro and con statements for the mailing. Also, it has to start within 1 day of
Right.
us taking a vote to
Right.
place a ballot question. So, I think that it is a matter of go forward or don't. Go.
Okay.
we need to move on. Do we have a motion?
I will move to include the advisory question, and I will read the question in this case. Would you be in favor of asking the school committee to reconsider the name of the publicly financed and owned property currently being built at 923 Old Marlborough Road in Concord, Massachusetts as Ellen Garrison Middle School?
Do I have a second?
On the special, so let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
On the ballot for the special election to be held June 25, 2024, following the procedures outlined in Mass General Law 53.
Thank you.
And is this going to be question 4 or question 1, or we don't care?
No.
Just,
Yeah,
okay,
they'll find it.
okay,
Yeah, it's not that big of a ballot.
okay.
Do you have another?
It would be good to decide the order of the question.
Okay, go ahead, add to your motion. As question,
1.
question 1.
That's question 1.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the next item on our agenda. Simone, I think it's your turn. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you, God.
I think he's pasting it, sending it to you right now.
Cut and paste. Here you go.
Wow, we're running behind.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Hi.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. So Minuteman National Historical Park is coming to you to request approval of our proposal for the North Bridge rehabilitation of the trail. So in your packet, we had included a copy of the plans. We have previously gone to the Conservation Commission as well as the Historical Commission, both who have approved our proposal. So I'm hoping this evening that you will approve per our agreement from 1963 for any major rehabilitation in the area.
Will this prevent flooding?
So it'll improve the resiliency, but unfortunately, the Concord River will be the river.
Pontoon Bridge, 20.
No pontoon bridge, but
I had one question as I
course.
went through your drawings. I thought they were great. It sounded like you were going to reduce the width of the path down to 12 feet. How big is it now?
so over the years, the material has moved. So it's probably about 16 feet now. So it's going to be bringing it back to its previous alignment. And that has been an issue sort of not just at North Bridge, but other areas of our trail too, due to use.
Okay, that's great. And I actually did see that there was some, so I don't know if there was dams, but you are trying to do something around the water there. I don't think you can control everything, but I mean, that is part of the design, correct?
Yes, we were trying to balance both protection of the commemorative landscape. So we didn't want any heavy infrastructure in terms of the design. So we are doing some elements, in particularly grass swales to help with sort of the leak off of water. If you saw it earlier this spring, you saw that a lot of the water just sat there as the river was receding. So this would help it come off the trail a little quicker. But again, we're not looking to armor that area. So it's not going to stop flooding, but it is going to make it more resilient.
Great, thank you.
So I'm not sure I heard correctly. It's going to be 12 feet wide, you said? And,
Yes.
and how wide is it now?
So in certain areas, it has sort of moved over the years. So it'll be tucking it back in. So in particular, the area directly around the Minuteman statue and the obelisk will still be wide like it is currently. But in particular, when you're on the side of Monument Street, as you're going from the obelisk area and the grave site into the sort of the main path, that's where it's kind of sort of pushed away, and that's where we'll be tucking it back in.
So it's gotten too wide and you're pushing it back in? Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
So the gravel material has essentially overflowed onto the drainage that has been previously installed. So that would be resetting it where the cobblestones are.
Okay, and what is the target completion date?
So, so after this evening, we're still working through the Section 106 process in terms of consultation with the Massachusetts State Historic Preservation Office, as well as our tribal partners. We anticipate being able to close that up in June. In conversations with our contractor, we are looking to get out on site in mid-August. And we are looking at a 4-week construction period for it. We don't want to close the bridge in its entirety, so we would do one side first and then the other side. So the visitors would still have access either from Monument Street or Liberty Street, but they wouldn't be able to go fully across. They would be able to get to one side or the other. And again, barring any weather issues or complications, 4 weeks should be what would be needed.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I would like to ask that if for some reason it gets really delayed, and hopefully it won't, but we ran into this with another project with another group. So, and it was a year delayed. So if something, if you can't do the construction before winter, and you have to do it next spring, would you please come back and talk to us first because of the 250?
It will be done.
Yeah,
this year.
yeah, I think
Yes.
it will too. I'm just requesting that it not be done next spring.
Yes.
Right.
No, I would be in trouble if it is not
Yeah,
finished
good luck.
by this year.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
Move to approve the proposed plans for the trail rehabilitation at the Minuteman National Historic Park North Bridge Trail as included in the select board meeting packet.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you, Simone.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Banfield.
Hi, good evening. Dean Banfield, 73 Walden Terrace, Chair of the ex officio Chair of the Solar Task Force.
Well, we haven't voted to disband you
Yeah, I
yet.
guess I'm still the chair.
Chair. Current chair.
Would
Okay.
you like me to go? I prepared some slides. They should have been distributed to you.
Yes.
Would you like me to go through that? How would you like to go down this road?
Why don't you do that?
Okay.
quickly?
Very briefly, our charge was kind of twofold. The primary mission that we had was to set the town on a track to get to our climate action plan goal of 20 megawatts of solar. And so we were to create a plan. We were to create a report and a plan and a schedule to get us there. Secondary priority was for us to show momentum, get the town moving, and hopefully provide at least one project within the scope of our tenure. So that was our goals. We've provided the report. The final report is now posted on the website under the Solar Implementation Task Force place on the web. And so that's completed. It was voted on May 9th. We're done with that. We did not achieve our goal of getting us going and getting a project over the line for this town meeting. And we're sorry about that, but didn't happen. What did we find in our report? That's really the next slide. What are the top line findings? The top line findings are that the light plant is operating an analog system in a digital world. And we really need to do some fundamental upgrading at the light plant in order for us to bring on technologies like solar, like batteries, which require minute to minute, second to second management. And that requires digital access. It requires remote control and some levels of automation. The light plant is working on projects to try to bring themselves into the world of that kind of control, but they are not there and they need to keep working on it. Meanwhile, MCI is shutting down. They have critical needs. So they're going to implement some of the things that will help, but they need to understand how to get the information out to the battery. How do we control when it's needed and when it's not needed? We need to monitor our system. We need to have digital and remote control capabilities to do these things and some levels of automation. So that's the light plant. They've got a lot on their plate. I feel for them, frankly. They got a lot to do. And they've also got projects that the town has voted for, things like solar over at the middle school, which is also, and that the light board has voted for, which is all these fancy meters that we're supposed to have. So they've got a lot to do. The other top line thing that we found, we studied the costs of installing solar, of what it would cost in terms of the energy value that we would get from solar. And when we looked at that, the light plant buys energy on the wholesale market. And so for that to be a productive thing for the light plant to do inside its own fence line, it needs to be able to produce electricity that is competitive with the wholesale market for electricity, because otherwise they can just go out and buy it elsewhere. There's no reason to do it here. The only type of solar that the light plant could build, operate, and get energy from that has any chance of being competitive with the wholesale market is ground-mounted solar. So that's the result. Roof-mounted is more expensive, and canopy mounts, which are everybody dreams about canopy mounts over at the high school, for example, they're astronomically expensive. They're way beyond the value of energy that you would get in the wholesale market. So that's a top line finding, is that we need to focus on ground-mounted solar. And so that leaves us looking for land. Where does the town control land where solar could go? We identified approximately 5 megawatts of land opportunities for spaces. So I can go through these slides, but I pretty much freewheeling here. We've identified 4 places where we can get about 5 megawatts. The landfill, a drainage area over at the high school, some area of the wastewater treatment plant that has been not in use and may never be used. And if that comes to pass, because there's some negotiation that is going to go on with the MCI wastewater treatment plant, if that becomes the case that it will not be used, it's an excellent spot to put some solar. And there's a small sliver of agricultural land that's currently unrestricted town land. It's not conservation restricted. And we are looking to use about 2 to 2.5 acres there out of a much larger parcel. And it's tucked away and not really near neighbors. And so we're trying to look at that as a possibility. So those are the 4 places that we identified. So those are the top line findings.
So sorry, Dean, just
Yeah.
to ask you a question on that. So how do these, when you think about the, capacity of the network and sort of what needs like battery storage and stuff,
Right.
how do these potentially compete with like other, people who want to put solar in for their business, you know what I mean, in a non-town location?
They do.
Because there's only so much capacity for solar that we sort of have.
The light plant has been discouraging large installations. If a large organization like the property owner at 300 Baker Avenue, the Emerson Hospital, I can name several where conversations have occurred and the light plant has to discourage recommendations, because that's where I'm going next.
Okay, cool.
Okay. We recommended installing a battery to reduce risk. It's not a perfect solution. Batteries are not 100% reliable. And if you're putting it in a critical role, you may want to have the battery have some kind of redundancy built in. That's just a thought on that. Upgrade from analog to digital, a digital system. We have we'll say we have the railroad, but we don't have the cars to put on the railroad. We have the broadband system that was put in like 10 years. Mark, how long ago was the broadband put in?
2008 was the.
2008. Okay. Been a while. Okay. We have the broadband system, but we're not running any traffic on it to speak of for light plant management. So we've got some infrastructure, but we need a lot more, meat on the bone. And so we're recommending that they upgrade to finish they have a project called SCADA, which will give them some level of supervisory and data acquisition capability. They have another project to sort of re-engineer the Forest Ridge substation so they can push bidirectionally, push energy back and forth. Metering domain it's called. So it's a lot of re-engineering that they have to do. And then they can also use storage. If they put it in to protect the network, they can use it to get that's a help to the environment, is to shave the peak. They can store energy and then release energy by dispatching it at a time when there's a lot of high usage and people need a lot of electricity. So that's a help for them. As I said before, the only solar projects they should really pursue are ground mounted solar. We did take a look at town buildings, town-owned buildings, and what if you put them on the roof of a town-owned building? If it was put on the roof of a town-owned building, it should be done by however that building is being managed and not by the light plant. And it should be done what's called behind the meter to offset the retail cost of energy. And then it might become a good value proposition for the town. But it would not be something that's managed by the light plant because they deal with wholesale energy, and it wouldn't be cost effective. Plus you also get into the kinds of problems we're having over at the middle school, which is that you've got multiple entities trying to work in the same space. You've got the school committee who controls the building, and then at the same time, you have the light plant trying to manage something on the school committee property. It becomes a management issue. New buildings should really be included, and we should have solar on new building projects. So if you build a new building in the town, you should look to find a way to get solar on the roof and have it included in the building project, not have it be an add-on thing. It's part of the bid. It comes back as just, it's like, we want this kind of air conditioning, and we want this kind of stuff on the roof. It's just part of the bids. Okay.
Can I ask you a question about
Yeah.
the ground mounted solar projects? So currently the existing ground mounted solar arrays that are part of our utility scale solar on the landfill and at the W.R. Grace property are power purchase agreement
Yes.
projects. Does that make them not particularly cost effective for the light plant as compared to owning, or does it not matter so much because they're inside our?
No, it does matter.
Look at that.
It does matter. At the moment, Jason should speak to it, but the entity that is providing the landfill power purchase agreement, Kearsarge Energy, they're making an offer to expand that to the space that we were looking at, doing. It is likely that they would want approximately 25 to 30% lift on what the town would get if we did it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to pay, if some private entity is doing it and looking to make a profit, you're going to have to pay. Because they're going to have the same development costs that you are. They may have some economies of scale, but on an individual project basis, I don't know how much exactly they're going to get in terms of purchasing, volume purchasing, because maybe they have multiple projects underway at the same time. I don't know, but I think that nonetheless, there would still be a fairly healthy disincentive to go with the purchase agreement.
So when you say the recommendation is pursue ground mounted solar projects, you really mean ground mounted owned and operated?
Yes,
solar projects.
owned and operated.
Thank you.
Yep.
Couple of quick questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned that agricultural land for 1 megawatt, the Burke land. Where is that located?
It's if you go down Miriam Road to the Ripley building, you'll see a Little League baseball diamond.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a field that was last year it was in corn, and this year it's in some kind of grass.
Yeah.
And if you look sort of south towards Bedford Street, we'd want pretty much down to where the Heritage Club would be on the left. It's
All right,
I'm-
close enough.
does
Just want to
that
get an
give you an
idea.
idea what we're
Right.
looking at there?
I was
That's-
thinking of completely the wrong place. And then my other question is, so you're talking about how the middle school, there's a management issue because you've got the school people in charge of the building, and then the light plant is building
Right.
the solar, and that we shouldn't do it that way in the future. So how is it going to work at the middle school? Have we gotten that stuff straightened out or?
Well, right now it's actually two construction projects right
Right.
now, which is, you've got the light plant with their solar team who are, they're designing and also installing the arrays and everything else. And then you have the school building committee who are building the building and watching over that, and they have their own, contracts and stuff. But in what I would call even a normal situation where you have an existing building, say at the high school, and we had extensive conversations with the school committee about putting something on the roof there. There's just a lot of back and forth that goes on. Who's responsible for changing the roof when the roof starts to leak and it's, now 20-year-old roof, and now you have to move the panels but the light plant's responsible for the panels. So it just becomes a very complicated thing when you have two entities who have to manage the facility,
Right.
which is
So I
a shared
agree
thing.
with that, but how is it going to work at the middle school then, when we have these two entities? Or are we still trying to?
I don't know, the
figure it out?
town voted it in, and so we're going to have to work through it, but maybe Mark can talk to
I can
that.
talk to that a little bit as a member of the middle
Yeah,
school
yeah.
building committee. The coordination is improving in there. That's why I've been reporting on it in my liaison reports. It's probably fair to say that the middle school building committee didn't consider the solar project as part of their purview. They
Right.
consider it a light board project and
Right.
a project that's separated. And so it's taken a little bit of effort to kind of push that onto the agenda. I've been raising some questions about whether or not there was any schedule risk, because the design of the middle school solar, particularly where it relates to the footings for the parking lot canopy areas, was running the risk of impinging on the schedule for
Mhm.
redoing the site work for that. The rooftop doesn't seem to be quite the same issue, because at least the design of the roof it envisioned solar panels being on the roof in the first place. But the parking lot area has been a concern, and those projects weren't getting quite the attention that they maybe should have been getting. And I'm not trying to say from whom. I would say actually the light plant was a little slow off the blocks too, from the time between when we, as town meeting, approved this project and it actually got going. So they could have kept up with the schedule. But if I read and by the way, very readable report, thank you. If I read what the solar task force is saying, they're saying, don't do it that way. Don't,
Right. I
don't
understand that.
pay for two projects. If
Right.
you're going to build a building,
Right. Okay.
Included.
include the solar right in the base bid, so that
Right.
you're not asking the general contractor to do something they consider a change.
Right. So
So-
I guess I'm hearing you say we're still working out how to coordinate.
Well,
all
yeah,
this. All right.
at this stage of the game, I would say that the potential risks to the project for scheduling are lowering as things like the ZBA variance approval get resolved, and the vaults that were required for the conduit and stuff like that have been. So there's been some change orders and some activity that have been in place to make that more, to get those things aligned.
Okay, we gotta move
Thanks.
on.
Okay, so I want to circle back on one thing that Cameron asked, and that was about how batteries, and how are we going to encourage larger installations, or will they continue to
Will they
impact,
com- yeah, with-
continue to
with
impact
private
us? Okay,
versus
all right,
common,
yes, exactly. One of the things that we are recommending as we get to our administrative to-dos, our administrative recommendations, I'm going to jump into the middle there. The light board needs to develop standardized interconnect agreements. So if a large installation like Emerson Hospital or 300 Baker Ave, or somebody who wants to put a lot of solar on the system is going to join the system, there needs to be a standardized interconnect agreement that says we have rights to stop your solar if we need to, or we have the right to, or you have to put in a battery that we can dispatch, or we can force to absorb energy when we need it to. So the light board, working with the light plant, needs to develop good, strong interconnect agreements that protect the light plant's
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Yeah, like flexible connections.
Yeah. So this is happening in California all the
Yep.
time where people are being told,
Yep.
you have so much solar, you got to curtail it. You can't just flood the system because we don't need it right now.
Yep.
So we have the same thing, and we need to have interconnect agreements that are strong and will support all of that. We're not building batteries in order to just, pay for somebody else to come onto the system.
And what about net metering, like back into, I know we don't do it today.
We do. We do.
No, I mean, sorry, not net, but back into like the grid, back into like everything.
Oh, we don't do that.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
That's on the agenda of the light plant to do.
Yeah.
It's probably 1 to 2 years. It's at least 2 years out probably at this point, but it's on one of their major upgrade lists. The one thing that we're asking the select board to do in the report is to develop a policy around putting, if we're building a building, that building includes solar panels as part of it. It's just part of our sustainability goals to have buildings.
So that, I wanted to just ask you that because you said ground is better than roof, but then it says develop.
Because we believe that in the development of a new building, if you include solar as part of the building bid, that you will probably be able to bring the price of the entire thing down to the point where.
And it would be
it
behind.
will also be a behind the meter
Behind the
system.
meter. It's a
It's
behind the meter.
meter system.
Right,
So,
that's the
we think that
difference.
that's good.
I have one question for you,
yeah.
Dean. So the town in this climate action plan had this goal of 20, right? Now, you're saying on municipal land, and you're saying that's not achievable if we don't include MCI or, but
Yeah.
let me get to my
Yes.
question. It seems like that was kind of arbitrary at the time, 20, why 20? And why does it have to be solar? Why couldn't, is there a way? Is anybody thinking of relooking at that plan to say, what are some other mechanisms available to us to reduce our carbon footprint or greenhouse gas or whatever?
I'd have to just defer to the CAC at that point.
I mean,
the
we had
CAC,
that
whatever.
discussion on the committee.
Yep.
And this report goes a long way in asking that question.
Great.
So
Okay.
we know what we can do based on the recommendations,
Okay.
and then,
Yeah.
Because having the goals to reduce emissions and then having more flexibility in the ways to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right? So you
absolutely.
want to optimize the
Right.
ways
Right.
to get there.
So we said,
Right.
you
Wild.
can get 5 on existing town.
Okay.
And we can get another 4, we think, between 2229 and MCI. We think we could get potentially another 4. That's 9. We were looking to get to 11, so that's too short. And we had a whole laundry list of buildings, but buildings are only going to get done if you're completely doing a new roof or you're building a new building.
Right.
It's not unlikely that you're just going to go to a building that's got a roof that's 10 years old and put solar on there, and then 10 years later, you're going to
But
take it
I
off.
think for me, you've taken a closer look at that 20 number.
Yes, we have.
And, and you've really brought it down to a level where looking overall, I think from the Climate Action Committee is the next step.
Yes.
So
I think so.
So I have a very quick question about the select board.
Yeah.
So if we're supposed to develop a policy requiring solar roof for all new buildings, but
That's like a capital planning.
But what if that causes too much solar? Like right now, we're having a problem where there's too much solar, right?
I think that problem is going to be mitigated in
With the
the 1 to 2 year range. It's going to be mitigated by the battery that was just approved at town meeting. And in the 2-year range, it'll be mitigated further by the bidirectional substation.
Right.
Great.
The other thing is that while we can behave a little bit differently in the sense that the town could agree to curtail or make dispatchable by CMLP any solar that it owns and controls, as opposed to that. And the reason that pays back for the town, just to say it out loud, is town buildings pay retail prices for the electricity from CMLP, just like every other customer. And so the economics of behind the meter solar, rooftop solar is different than CMLP owned rooftop solar, which has a higher cost to install and maintain.
So
We have one strong request for the town manager, and that is that somebody owns this report. Some staff person who will periodically cycle through all the to-dos that are in that report and check in and see that those to-dos are being followed up. We're really reluctant to have this just become shelfware that, you know, a nice report. Thank you for playing. We have some lovely parting gifts, you know, it's.
Light board is the right one for that? Or-
I just think that there are multiple players in here. There's notice to a farmer if we want to take 2 acres of land that is being leased. There's that might be Delia. There are
but there has to be
CPW needs to take a look at the feasibility of doing solar on that drainage basin and issue an opinion that is firm about what can be done there. So there's different players in different recommendations within the report, and someone needs to be a single owner of
Okay.
this report.
Can
with
I,
staff.
can I recommend that we put on a future agenda, circle back to these and see if we've made progress on these? I'm thinking, what do you think? February?
Yeah.
The February agenda?
Not,
I'm
not my,
saying-
not my job anymore.
No, I
or
know.
Hopefully.
But you know what, we should talk to the light plant because the landfill, that feasibility study's coming and they should be working toward a 2025 town meeting article.
Yeah, there's
Don't you
the
think? So-
first thing on the suggested schedule is a 2025 town meeting article.
Okay, so you're saying before the warrant?
Yeah,
process. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Who's our liaison to the CMLP? Cameron?
But Cameron, they're actively working on that
Yeah, yeah,
project.
yeah,
They're-
no.
Just so that you shepherd that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, I
Great.
love the reports. I'm so thankful. Like, that's great work. There's a ton of work that's been done. I just, for me, I'm a big believer in setting the goals, but then having more flexibility in exactly how you get there. So like, let's have clean buildings.
Mhm.
Does it exactly need to be this solar or that battery or this, all electric, whatever it is? Like, there's multiple mechanisms that continue to evolve to enable you to get there, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
that's just, to me, is like the direction of travel. Yes, let's look at making sure we're sort of optimizing the ways we're gonna
Okay,
get
so Wendy, what article do you think that they're thinking of proposing
Well, it's the land, well, it'll be the landfill
for the landfill?
solar, right? So they're doing the feasibility analysis. We'll have much better data on it. So it would be the expansion of the landfill.
Yeah, the date
Okay,
that's shown on this
to me, that's
schedule.
Separate from these
6/24.
administrative
Oh, the
recommendations?
administrative.
Okay,
Well,
so.
well, part of what Dean is getting to is moving on these other projects
This-
forward
yeah.
too, which take
I see what you're
public
saying. Yep.
meetings and things like that to get input and insight.
But
But-
I will say that my experience is being in Dean's position with the fiber completion broadband task force was that Jason Balzer, as the
Yeah.
broadband leader, was receptive and embraced those goals and has been reporting out on progress against that on a regular basis to the light board in their meetings. And so I think that a model like that could work. I'm personally in favor of putting the goals and the policy objectives in the hands of other citizen boards and asking that are providing governance for the operational unit, because that way we kind of keep the citizen goals where they are a little bit outside of the complete control of staff.
Okay, I'm still a little bit confused as far as what we're gonna do as far as some of these administrative recommendations and the schedule. To me, they're separate. The schedule, I think, would be the warrant articles or the CMLP moving forward on some of these specific sites, and that would be kind of you, Cameron, shepherding that. As far as the administrative recommendations, I'd like to circle back on that and get an update on some of these. I don't want it to become shelfware. I want this to be actionable. So I'm going to recommend again that we look at this in the February timeframe, because I'm assuming that the specific sites will be through the warrant process.
Don't we have something coming up from the facilities management?
Yeah, the other thing I'll just comment, Eric Simmons said he's, he was part of our committee.
Right.
And he's coordinating with facilities, doing all the energy savings. So he's keeping solar in mind. So to the degree there's a new building, obviously he's going to be advocating for solar. I don't know if that's a facilities policy that needs to be established. All new buildings would be readied for solar. That sounds like an administrative kind of policy.
It sounds like
The
you
light
might
board.
be the logical one for Terry to assign to. the
Yeah.
executive.
Okay.
That's
Probably, yeah.
very-
How about this for an action item? I will talk with Carrie to
Yeah.
find out what is the right way
Right.
and who are the right people
Okay.
to implement some of these administrative recommendations.
Great.
Okay, so somebody needs to put that on my next agenda for my meeting with Carrie. Thank you, Dean. Thank you so much. I mean,
There's gonna be some
you,
kind of vote, I thought
Yeah.
about.
we have to move.
Yeah, we move to accept the final report of the Solar Implementation Task Force and to disband, I know Dean was waiting for that, the Solar Implementation Task Force due to the conclusion of their work as outlined in their charge with our thanks.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Dean. It was a lot of work, those committees, it's just well, these committees, these task forces that you get, they are, just so everyone's aware, it's a lot of work for a small number of people. So, and it was a good, concise report. So,
It really was.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Next one, review. Mark, you're up
This-
for the MCI.
The MCI advisory board. So we have an embarrassment of riches. And so we're asking for a basically one word, or actually one number change in the MCI advisory board charge to allow us to nominate and appoint 10 candidates, up to 10 candidates as opposed to 9. So, and the 10 candidates are listed in no particular order here. And I could just go ahead and make the motion, or we could discuss first.
Just out of curiosity, how many folks did we have that wanted to?
There was a lot of interest in this, and we have an incredible skill base of people with real estate planning, architectural, technology experiences, not to mention, experience with other similar state projects. And so as we were looking at who we had available, and also one of the things that Mary and I collaborated over this a little bit, we were also looking for people who were interested in doing community outreach so that we could engage in a robust master planning process and really find out what this community wants and needs and interface, hopefully in a really constructive way with the state. So we think we've built a pretty good team here, and we're looking forward. I know they're anxious to get moving at this point.
I will say, I'm not sure, you're right. I think this is a lot of people around real estate law and development. I think we're light on people to help us do the community outreach effectively. And that's where we might need consulting dollars. So right now there is it's part of I think the Senate bill is asking for $475,000 worth of money for Concord. So that might be the first way we spend it. But anyway, that's enough.
Which reminds me that we didn't get a DCAM update today, but maybe we can do that.
Oh, yeah, well,
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion.
go ahead.
Move to approve the amended MCI Concord advisory charge as included in the select board meeting packet and to nominate the following candidates to the MCI Concord Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2025, with the option of reappointment at the discretion of the select board. Linda Miller of 300 Main Street, Patrick McCurdy of 1100 Monument Street, Peter Lowett of 5 Westvale Drive, Scott Bates of 52 Indian Spring Road, Lee Smith of 1836 Main Street, John Boynton of 72 Chestnut Street, Aaron Cusser of 61 Comerford Road, Emily Rush of 122 Upland Road, Elizabeth Akers Moore of 86 Holden Wood Road, and Dan Gainsborough of 12 Mill Run Lane.
Second.
Question, for
Go ahead.
discussion. As far as the charge goes, because this is a two-part vote, we're nominating these people and we're voting the amended charge.
Yes.
What are the amendments compared to what we looked at last time? Were there a lot of amendments?
No, there's only one.
The only difference was we had said 7 to 9, I think, and so we're changing it to 7 to
Okay.
10.
Okay, great.
Remember.
Good. Okay, we ready for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss the letter from the Conservation Law Foundation. And my intention here is not to go over and edit or comment on the letter itself. My intention is just to decide amongst ourselves, do we want to sign on as select board members or do we want to sign on, if at all, as individuals? when you go on, I went online to sign on, and one of the questions it asks you is organization. And that's, I stopped because I didn't know whether I wanted to include my role as a select board member or not. So that is what's for discussion, not the actual 13-page letter. If people want background about how that letter came to be, I'd be happy to do that, but we don't have to. Talk.
So
For me,
Sure.
I know that he's part of something.
He was, yeah, okay. So Henry and I developed a relationship with the Conservation Law Foundation way back during the White Pond Advisory Committee. Because we wanted to understand some of their work relative to the waterways in Barnstable County and how that impacted White Pond. So we established this relationship, and when this came up, we had the idea of maybe we could reach out to them again because they're very prestigious environmental attorneys. So we used that same contact. The woman got very engaged, and she produced this 13-page letter.
Okay.
It's quite a letter.
It's quite a letter. So I've been following this a lot with the HFAC and the hats, and I think this is an amazing letter and we should sign on as a board. In particular, the DEIR fails to meet the standard that the secretary set up. The DEIR is supposed to and there's 4 mandated requirements, and according to this letter, it doesn't meet any of the 4. And so when I had to write the letter for the select board, I really struggled with how to write a letter. This is like amazing. I would be really happy to sign on. And I'm hoping the whole board will.
Do we know if other towns are signing on or have signed on?
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
Right. So unfortunately, HFAC meets tomorrow and HATS meets Thursday, so I don't know what they're going to be doing.
Who goes to those meetings?
I do.
Are you going? Can you ask them?
I will ask them.
Okay.
But that's again after tonight, so.
So is it an option for us
But
to sign on?
I think,
I was just asking.
can we get this more exposure?
Yeah,
You-
well, and just like,
or
are
was
we
that
one of 10
condition-
towns who have signed on and this can be like more sort of like, look at all the towns that have signed on, or are we like, we're the only one and everybody, I just was curious. I really didn't have any.
Well, we have signed other joint letters, like the hats. They've eventually created a letter which all 4 select boards did sign on to.
Twice, 2 different, yeah, yeah.
But the process here is you simply go onto their website and you sign on. And we can sign on, I can sign on as Mary Hartman or Mary Hartman Chair of the Select Board. Mark can sign on as Mark Howell or Mark Howell Select Board. So it really is just giving us a little bit more authority when we sign on.
Yeah, we should sign on.
But we should still do it individually as select board members. That's what I'm saying. What do you think, Shannon? You look confused.
Just because I wonder if there's a way we could fill out the form where it would just group all of you together as the Concord Select Board, but that's.
You know what, though? I think they kind of go by the number of signatures that they get sometimes to give weight to. Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
great,
good. So we still need a vote.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Very good.
So-
And in terms of exposure, it also came up at the 250th luncheon yesterday because the jets were disturbing things at the parade and the North Bridge. And so it came up and people were saying, well, where's this letter? How do I get on? So
Gotcha.
those people are all, I think it's getting a lot of exposure.
Eric Sims took the action item to get this out to as many people as he can.
Good.
So hopefully inside Concord, it's getting a lot of exposure. But outside, Terry, I think that's where you'd be a big
I will
help to us.
definitely find out.
So that'd be great. Thank you.
Soliciting all citizens to get on board with this? Like, I don't know. I
No.
just saw this letter. If anyone go on to this, can do that? I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yes,
Yeah,
but Eric is not sending a letter to all citizens.
Could we put it on the website?
Right.
Could we put it on the website?
Sure.
Very good. Thank you.
So
Thank you. Go ahead.
if you're ready for a motion, I move that the select board sign on to the Conservation Law Foundation's comment letter regarding Hanscom North Airfield proposed expansion as a full board and as individual members.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Okay.
Great,
Um,
thanks for doing this.
Correspondence policy. Let's go over this correspondence policy. I have embedded the feedback that I got, and I think people have the latest version. There's just one thing, or actually Cameron has two other edits that we'd like to make. So before I talk about that, does anybody else have any edits that they would like
Well,
us
I
to?
just want some clarification.
Yeah,
The
go ahead.
first version we got had red and blue on it. Yeah, it was red line and blue line, and now we got another one today that didn't have that. Yeah, it's clean, doesn't have any colors. So the first thing I want to know is, what's the difference between these two versions?
Wait, you sent out the red and blue line. You did.
No, you-
That's,
What I got today, earlier today was a clean copy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a clean copy, and I looked, and your edits from the red line were in it.
Right, but so what is the what are the new things that got added in today's version?
you mean Cameron's version?
I think it's just.
Okay, the edits that Cameron made that are beyond what was in the packet, which was the red line version,
Okay,
include, I think, three things. Help me out here. The 1,000 words went down to 800.
well, what section is that?
The very last,
That's it. Yep.
Okay,
where it says maximum, under
Yeah.
process, it says the maximum length for publication is 2 pages. He went from 1,000 to 800.
okay,
He wanted me to replace, board with select board through the body of the letter,
Okay.
which was a good thing.
yeah,
And then he wanted to talk about under the exceptions, number 5, where it says our form letters sent by many individuals. We want to, this basically reads right now, like if we get form letters, we're not going to publish them. But the original document said that we would,
The original had a
Publish.
paragraph saying.
Yeah,
In
right.
volume, we would publish a subset.
right.
So so the question just then became, if we're gonna say we're not gonna publish form letters sent by many individuals. Do we say, I don't know if there's a way to. Before there was a paragraph. but-
Right, there's a whole paragraph.
paragraph crossed in.
It's just that,
Sample.
that's what I meant, was the sample thing, like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we received the same letter 17.
So you could say our form letter sent by many individuals, parentheses, we would publish something about,
Exactly.
beyond,
Okay, okay, great.
And-
samples will be published.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
or
Okay, good.
I
And
don't
then
think we
finally,
commit to counting them or.
No.
we'll publish a representative sample. We can say, however, we will publish a representative sample.
Yep.
How's that?
Good.
Great. Okay. And then finally, and this is not on this version, Cameron asked if we really needed the last paragraph, which is basically saying we may decide to go back to the writer or the author and ask them to change the things that we found unacceptable. And he's wondering Cameron, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for you.
It was just a question of whether we need to explain that in writing. So,
I think that's useful to set an expectation amongst people who, might disagree or be, not understand why their letter is not getting published. And so it just sets the expectation that there is a process if you come up with something and that they're going to get a response of some kind.
What do other people think?
Oh,
It's
it's
the
the
very
very last paragraph.
That's the last version. I just
No,
sent
it's
you.
on both versions.
It is.
I don't know, the red part just didn't show up.
Right,
Oh,
I saw it as it came through redlined and then I changed it specifically to, to no markup just to see it. And then I noticed that there's a couple of like periods and an extra bullet. and some things like
Well,
that.
I know when you download, it depends which way you download. Sometimes you lose the red line. That's fine, though. Yeah,
You
we
change
got it
both.
now.
The other thing, Cameron,
I do
the-
too.
Categories, I think that's fine.
Cameron, you also made a point about, do we want the select board chair and or the town manager or the whole select board? And I'm wondering if I can address your concern by saying the select board chair and or the town manager or their designee.
Yeah, I was just trying to, because there might be times when you don't want that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So we can, because I don't want the whole board to have to discuss
Oh, no,
everything,
no,
right?
The intention was.
But I can say,
It's have to fall on you.
I can say, or their designee.
Yeah.
Okay?
That becomes a deliberation if you don't do.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, so, or their designee
Yeah.
meets
Yeah.
what you're trying.
Or to try to.
Thank
so that
you.
we don't have
Thank
to-
you. So I'm going to designate it to you. Okay. Okay, so I captured 3 changes to the latest version that Shannon sent out today, which is that on number 5, we'll add, however, we will publish a representative sample. I will add after in the last paragraph, it says the select board chair and or town manager or their designee may make their determination not to publish any letter, and they will, and the select board chair or their designee may inform the letter writer.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
okay.
Okay.
What do people think? Are we good to go?
We're ready to go.
The correspondence policy is amended in this meeting and then the select board-
Any second?
So,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, very good. Thank you.
Great.
Janet, do you have those or do you want me to? Great, okay.
Do we have a-
Would you publish that on our on the website, the correspondence policy on the select board website?
Not yet.
No, she said, would you?
Would you? Would you? Thank you.
Did I?
No, 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 no. I knew that. Don't do that.
So under this policy, and I followed the link for select board correspondence and I see weekend May 10th. So is that, are we?
What?
What?
Yeah,
Weekend?
no, that's the way it used to be. It was,
Yeah.
now you're moving it to Monday.
Yes.
By noon, right?
Yes.
So
Oh, wait a minute.
update would be as of Monday,
Yes.
the 20th at noon.
Correct.
Okay. And, okay.
So it's every Monday at noon.
Yes,
Every Monday at noon. That's when
that's the deadline.
great.
Okay, great.
Okay, correspondence, all the correspondences, again, thank you to Shannon for posting those. They were posted at noon. They'll be posted every noon, Monday. Okay, anything else that we need to talk about? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.